Tennis is a very challenging sport, and it's a very difficult sport for people to get good at, especially older players. There are a number of different things that can prevent older players from improving, but in this video I'm going to explain the number one thing that holds most older players back. And it's probably going to be quite different to what you're expecting, because tennis is all about tactics. It's all about your ability to place the ball in positions that are difficult for your opponent to force them into making a mistake. So you have to have really good tactical awareness, you have to be able to make quick decisions, and you have to be able to make good decisions under pressure when you're playing a match. But we also have to be able to implement those tactics, and that is where technique comes in. We need to be able to hit different types of shot using different techniques, whether it's forehand, backhand, or you're hitting topspin or flat or slice. And the more different techniques that you can use consistently, the more tactics you can implement. And that's why over time your goal as a tennis player is to develop and improve your technique so that you can hit these different types of shot consistently. The way that you practice is going to be really important, and actually this is one of the big things that holds players back as well, is just not practicing in the right way. But I talk about that in a lot of other videos. I'm not going to be focusing on that here, because there's actually something else that's far more fundamental than the way you practice. Because even if you practice perfectly, you can still struggle to get past a certain point, because what else is important is how your body functions. Tennis is a very physically demanding sport, and when I work with players, I do a series of assessments. Obviously, I watch them playing points, I look at their different techniques, but then we also assess how is their body functioning. And there are three systems that are going to be really important. You need to have a great visual system so that you can see the ball well. You need to have great movement so you can get around the court and so that you've got coordination. And you also have to have really good balance. And what I generally find is that most people have issues in both the visual system and the movement system, but the biggest challenge for most older players is balance. It's often kind of scary when I do balance assessments with players how bad their balance is. So that's what we're going to be focusing on here, and what I want to do is show you a very simple sequence of balance assessments so you can kind of identify where you are, talk about why it's so important for improving your technique and making tactical decisions and staying injury free, and then talk about how to train your balance system to fix these problems so that you can become a better player as you get older. So we're going to do 4 different assessments, and I highly recommend that you record yourself like I'm doing here so that you can watch them back and make sure that you're doing the assessments properly, and also to identify some of the things that I'm going to be explaining to you as we go through the assessment. So the first one is going to be a Romberg assessment that basically involves standing with your heels and toes together, having your arms relaxed by your side and closing your eyes. Now you can see I'm doing this in tennis shoes because I'm out on court, and it's a good idea to test in shoes at some point, but normally for people I start by testing in bare feet to kind of get a truer idea of how their balance is functioning. But this is the assessment. You'll just be standing there with your eyes closed for 20 to 30 seconds. Now, if you immediately lose your balance, so if you don't have the ability to stand here at all, then I highly recommend just going to your doctor and getting them to check your balance out. But hopefully everybody that's watching this video and that's playing tennis is able to at least balance to a certain point standing in this position. Because then what we're going to be looking for is the amount of sway and movement there is. Everyone's going to have a tiny little movement. Nobody's like a robot where they're completely still, but we're looking for excess sway. And often what we see is people swaying towards an area of dysfunction. So if the left side of someone's balance system doesn't work well, they might kind of sway to the left and then kind of come back to the middle. And then they sway to the left and come back to the middle. If the right side's not working, they often sway to the right. Some people go forwards, some people go backwards, some people kind of do a circular motion. But any kind of bigger movement indicates an issue with the balance system. So this is assessment 1. The second assessment we're going to do is going to be standing on one leg with your eyes open. This will be the position that you'll go into. So I'm just standing on my right leg, arms are by my side, and you can see that my other foot is just raised in front of me. So you could place your leg in this position, you could place it behind you, but what I don't want you to do is to touch any other part of your body. So this is normally what I recommend. I find that most players, even older players, can maintain their balance like this when they've got their eyes open, because the visual system really helps them out. So what we're looking for is how stable are you? Are you just standing there comfortably, nice and relaxed? Is your foot working like crazy and things are shaking because you're finding it hard to balance? Are you kind of wobbling and leaning, or are you having your arms out to try and hold you in position? Kind of what is your level of balance? How is it on the right side? And then compare that to the left side, looking for the same things. Am I wobbling and leaning? Is my foot working rocking like crazy? Am I doing different things? Am I leaning to one of the sides? So sometimes what I see is someone standing on their right leg and they're kind of leaning to one side, and then you put them on their left leg and they're kind of leaning to one side, and often that can point again to them having challenges on the side that they're leaning towards. But that's assessment 2, single leg balance. The next assessment we're going to do is single leg, eyes closed this time. And the way that I recommend that you set up, you get into the same position as before. Once you've got your balance, then close your eyes and see how long you can maintain your balance for. I find for a lot of people, it's challenging to close your eyes and then stand on one leg, which is why I always say stand on one leg, get comfortable, and then close your eyes. And we're going to be comparing right side to left side, again, doing 20 to 30 seconds. And we're looking for many of the same things that we've seen before. But the first one being, can you actually maintain your balance? I find that the vast majority of players, even over the age of 40, but definitely over 50, and especially when we're getting up into 60s and 70s age category, they really struggle to balance with their eyes closed, and they're putting their foot down almost straight away, 1, 2, 3 seconds. So what that tells me is that they're relying very heavily on their visual system to let them balance, because when I close my eyes, I'm now relying more on information coming from my feet and from my ankles and from my knees and my hips and my spine, so kind of sensory information, and then I'm relying on information that comes from my balance or vestibular system in the inner ear. So again, are there any compensations going on? When I'm in this position, how much are the feet moving? Because they have to move a little bit to keep you stable, but it shouldn't be crazy movement. Am I swaying and kind of having to recover? Can I just stand there with my arms by my side, or am I having to put my arms out to try and maintain my balance? Is there a particular pattern that's going on? So again, like I said before, sometimes we get a situation where I stand on the right leg and I kind of lean to the right, and even when I stand on my left leg, I kind of lean to the right. Maybe that indicates a challenge on the right side of the balance system. And that's why it's really important to record yourself to try and pick up on some of these more subtle things. But test it out, see if you can do 20 to 30 seconds, just standing there with your eyes closed comfortably. The fourth assessment that we're going to do involves standing on one leg. You'll have your eyes open, but now you've got a visual target. So I'm going to have my arm straight, and I'm going to be looking at my thumbnail with my eyes, and then I'm going to be turning my head from left to right, and you're going to aim for 10 repetitions. And when we do this, we're trying to do it at a decent speed. So when we move our heads, we're challenging the balance system, which is actually called the vestibular system that lives in your inner ear. The faster you move your head, the more you challenge this system. So what happens for a lot of people when they do this exercise is they start to move their heads really slowly to compensate, and they're not intending to cheat, but they are cheating. So when you're doing this assessment, make sure that you're turning your head at a decent speed and you're having a decent size head movement. Now, depending how your system functions, this might make you feel a little bit dizzy or a little bit nauseous or a little bit lightheaded. If that happens, I don't want you to push through and make yourself feel sick, but it does tell you that this system is going to be a problem, and it's definitely going to be restricting you on court, so it kind of gives you the information that you need to know. But we're going to test right leg, turning the head right to left 10 times. We're going to test left leg, turning the head right to left 10 times, and then we're also going to be looking up and down. So same thing, right leg, 10 reps up and down, left leg, 10 reps up and down. Now, we're looking for a couple of different things when we do this assessment. We're looking for what happens to your balance. So we're challenging the balance system in the inner ear that detects movement, and now as we challenge this balance system, are you still able to stay nice and balanced, or as soon as you start to move your head, do you now lose your balance? So that's one of the things that we're looking for. But then we're also looking at how clear does your visual system stay? So one of the big roles of our balance system is to detect movement of our head and keep our eyes looking at targets. So obviously massively important for everything that you do in tennis. So as you go through this exercise, does your thumbnail stay clear? Or does it go a little bit blurry or a little bit traily or wavy? Or does it start to split in two because your brain can't keep both eyes focused on the target? So we're looking at that on the right side and the left side, and we're kind of comparing and identifying what goes on. But you definitely want to record yourself on this one to kind of make sure that you're moving your head at the appropriate speed. But that's our fourth assessment. So now that you've gone through the assessments, I want to explain a little bit more about why balance is so important in tennis and why issues with those assessments and with your balance system are going to be holding you back and preventing you from improving. And really this is going to fall into 4 categories, the first of which is visual. As I've just mentioned, we have a reflex that keeps our eyes looking at things as our head moves. So as we're moving around the tennis court, it's actually the balance system that's responsible for keeping our visual field clear. So often when people struggle with reading the flight of the ball or they struggle with tracking the ball, it's related to the balance system. The next issue is going to be related to movement. Your balance system is heavily integrated and involved in the way that you move. And your brain's pretty smart. It's all about safety. I think tennis is important, you think tennis is important, but our brains just want to stay safe, and it's not going to let us do things that it thinks will harm us. So the way this works is if your balance system isn't functioning well, it's going to negatively impact all of your movements. So it's not going to let you twist and rotate, because remember, the balance system is responsible for detecting rotational movement. So if your balance system isn't working well, you're not going to be able to rotate on your shots properly. You're not going to be able to twist and turn properly. We've got receptors that deal with vertical movement. So if there's challenges in this area, your brain isn't going to want you going into a trophy position, launching up in the air and throwing your head forwards on your serve. It's definitely going to create limitations when you're moving back for overheads. If you think about lunging for something like a low volley, your head is moving forward towards the ground. Your brain is not going to like you doing stuff like that. It's also not going to let you move freely around court. It's not going to give full strength to your muscles and let you sprint if it's worried that it might fall over. And it's also going to limit your coordination. So it's going to prevent you from developing your technique and learning and improving in that sense. So it's really important for the way that you move. The next area where it's going to be important is kind of pain and injury prevention, especially in specific areas. So your balance system basically controls your spine, it controls your glutes, it controls your hamstrings, it controls your calves. So if you have neck pain or back pain or hip pain or hamstring issues or calf issues or Achilles issues or plantar fascia issues, often those things are going to be related to the balance system, especially if you've been dealing with them for a while. So again, another really important reason that you need to work on how this system functions. And then finally, we've got the mental side of things. And it really follows along a similar line. Your brain really cares about staying safe and surviving. And if it knows there's a problem with your balance system, it spends all its time worrying about staying safe and moving around court and doing all the crazy stuff when we do tennis. It means that there's less bandwidth left over for making good decisions and having good shot selection. And it also increases the level of stress within your body. So when you add the stress from your brain worrying about balancing to the stress of playing match, it tends to make people more nervous as well. And if we look at research on things like anxiety, there's a lot of research linking issues with the balance system to anxiety. So for all of these 4 reasons, having problems with your balance is massively going to reduce how well you can play tennis. And conversely, if you improve your balance, it's going to lead to improvements on court, which is why I train my balance on a regular basis. And that's why I get all of my clients to train their balance on a regular basis. And the good news is, the first thing that you can do to try and improve your balance is just work on the assessments that we've just done. Just practice them each day, and that's going to start to address some of the problems that you've got going on. But if you'd like to learn more about improving your balance to get better at tennis, there's a lot of other stuff that we can do. I've got a whole program where I work with players, teaching them how to use brain-based training to improve balance and vision and coordination and other things. So I'll place a link in the description so that you can potentially work with me if that's something you're interested in. I'll also place a link to a free class, and that class is going to go more into detail about how brain-based training works for improving your performance. But hopefully everything that I've explained here makes sense. Go through those assessments, see how you get on, record yourself, see if you can identify specific problems. If you find them, then I highly recommend starting to train your balance system. If you don't find any problems, it's highly unlikely. I've never assessed anyone where I didn't find any problems, but if you didn't, I would still train your balance because it's still beneficial and is likely to give you improvements in tennis. Any questions or comments about anything I've covered here, leave them down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.